I also am thinking about my project on Sunday night because it takes up my entire Monday.
Who's won?
It's flip-flop between the two of them.
Who is it?
Allen.
Okay, now it's Allen.
It was Mahomes coming into this game.
I felt like Mahomes played so well tonight, too,
It's not because it's hard to say that someone's lesser. It's just that I think Allen came in and think about the environment here. And that 1:13 touchdown drive where they went 96 yards. This was the loudest stadium I've heard all year, I think.
To end the first half.
Right. And that was just so resilient by the Bills. And then I think of Josh Allen on a key moment leaping over a Chiefs defender for that major conversion. I mean, these are moments that Josh Allen does things that no one else can do.
Right. So you brought up that touchdown drive at the end of the first half. They get it with 1:29. At that point, the score is 7-3 Chiefs. There was a lot of great defense being played in this game. Turnovers. And he goes 98 yards, as you mentioned, in 7 plays, leaves only 16 seconds, and the Chiefs somehow get a field goal back, just like at the end of the AFC Championship or divisional round game there. But I thought it was interesting on that final drive. They get the ball with 5:31 to go. They go on a 12-play, 76-yard touchdown drive to take the lead. They relied on his legs. Like, that's where it's like, okay, let's stop messing around. Let's have Josh Allen run whenever possible. Some called runs, some scrambles, and for the most part it worked because they were struggling in short yardage. But that throw to Knox and the 2 other touchdown throws before, I think shows the difference between Allen now and maybe 2 years ago. I mean, that was insane ball placement to Knox. Like, there was not really a hole there to find, and he found it to Dawson Knox to take the lead.
And having Knox back after he was knocked out last year, that's a big part of this offense. Having him in there, he's a trusted red zone guy. Gabe Davis continues to kind of be a guy that you could trust more and more. He had a long touchdown in this game.
More than Isaiah McKenzie, at least.
Right, and then you had Stephon Diggs, who, he is a number 1 receiver in every way that you need, and he had 10 for 148 and a touchdown on 13 targets. So that's my takeaway from this game is it doesn't change how I feel about either team. And like everyone else, it's going to feel like we're cheated if they're not playing again in January. But you know how football is. You never know how injuries and other things can pop up from now until then. But it's just fun to be able to enjoy these games with Nance and Romo. It was just a fun afternoon.
I think it's also it's more of a rarity this season because we were talking about this in the newsroom, and there's more to get into. But, like, there aren't 6 or 7 teams like this in the NFL right now, dominant teams.
No,
this is sort of
superpowers.
it in the AFC. And then there's the Eagles, and then there's just a fall off to mediocrity or just teams that are figuring out who they are.
Although I know it's early to say this, but it might be bigger for the Bills to get this win because the AFC East, and I know we're getting to it, looks a little more challenging. You know, if they fell a game back of the Chiefs, where the AFC West maybe doesn't look as good as we expected, like they might need that cushion. I know last year it didn't end up mattering too much. I don't know, though. I think the Bills have more answers than the Chiefs. I think they're a better team overall, as you said.
Psychologically,
like they ran the ball better today, and they have more playmakers on defense.
I think psychologically, had the Bills lost, it's like this is the team we can't get past. Now it's like you went into Kansas City where it seems like they're always having to go, and they took care of business, and it's very possible they end up with a tied record at the end of the regular season.
I also think, and I'm sure the Bills would back this up if they haven't actually been on the record saying it, that they lost that game in January and felt like they were the better team. Like they should have been the team that represented the AFC in the Super Bowl. They should have won it. So that had to be an incredible feeling to get this win. And you're right, going to January now, if they do see each other again, there will be no nerves existing in terms of can we get over the hump. They know it. We're better than these guys. We showed it in October. We'll show it again, but can't get ahead of ourselves. But it's been a while since you could like look at two teams and be like, oh, we'll see them again. It just feels like
we will. And quick shout out to a Wes favorite. Matt Milano has gone from like everyone's underrated linebacker to just maybe the best off-ball linebacker in football. He has been outrageous each and every week, and he was part of that last play too with Von Miller.
There you go. All right, so who locked it?
West Bros.
Hey,
redemption.
Nick, he did the 3-hour uncut version, but guess what? He got a W, and hopefully, more importantly, wins and losses. He got the faith of his own brothers back, and the Cincinnati Zoo has some peace.
I think he paralleled the Bills today on some level.
All right, speaking of the New York teams, let's start with the team that played at the Meadowlands today.
Jackson in a shotgun set, calls signals, takes the snap, he's back to throw. Under pressure, hit by Thibodeau, ball comes loose, and the Giants scramble for it. It's still loose, and finally recovered by the Giants. at the 12-yard line. Kayvon Thibodeau gets his first career sack in big fashion.
Boy, that's a closing play there.
Bob Papa. Gravedigger.
Oh.
Not another word.
Just taking his knees out from under him.
Bob Papa with the call at WFAN. It is on in New York City or East Rutherford. Get over it. The Big Blue defense led by former Ravens coordinator Wink Martindale forced 2 turnovers by Lamar Jackson late in the fourth quarter, and you heard our friend, our bud, Kayvon Thibodeau, stepping up with the strip sack to seal it. The Ravens, another meltdown late, and the Giants, another victory in which they hang around, they enter as an underdog, and then all of a sudden it's the fourth quarter, and a team has to make a play, and guess who makes the play? The Brian Daboll team makes the play. And I said it to you, Greggy, it's become an every week thing that you look up at the monitors in the newsroom after these early window games, and there's Brian Daboll running off the sideline to greet and celebrate with his team and do the handshake with head coaches. And then you see him pumping his fist as he's looking to the crowd, supporters, whether it's family or friends or fans or whatever. There is something cooking here with the Giants. There absolutely is, and this was a case where a team, and I'll start on the defensive side of the ball here, because this is a team we talked about. Their defense had the potential to be one of the worst in the league entering the year, but they're so, like everything else with the Giants, so well coached, and their ability to keep Lamar Jackson from beating them with the big play, beating him with huge plays with his legs, getting no big Devin Duvernay bomb down the field. These type of plays that have marked the Baltimore offense, they were held in line, and then when the game was on the line, they made big plays and made Lamar look like Clark Kent.
Right, that interception that Lamar Jackson threw in the fourth quarter is a surprise, and yet on some level with this Ravens team, I think if you're a Ravens fan right now, you almost felt it coming, because there was a crazy stat out there. They were 31-2 in the fourth quarter since the Lamar era started with a 10-point lead. They're 2-3 this year. Now, on some level, it's impressive. They've had a 10-point lead in 5 games, and they've blown it 3 times. Twice 17-point leads. This time, a 10-point lead. Neither side can, making a big play. But I'm surprised, Dan, because they had a running game working today. What do you think it was? Because you look at, it's another game where you look at the Giants box score and the leading receiver is Daniel Bellinger with 38 yards, and you're like, how is this happening?
No, if you're a Ravens fan, and apologies to you guys that are listening to this right now, and I respect you for listening to our podcast, because this has to be super, super frustrating. Team stats here. The Ravens put up 406 yards. The Giants had just 238. The Ravens held Saquon Barkley to under 4 yards a carry, and he didn't have that type of ridiculous big game that has marked many of these Giants' wins to start the season. They did what they wanted on the ground. They averaged almost 9 yards per carry on the ground in this game. But again, there's just something about this team, and Daniel Jones deserves credit as well. He doesn't throw an interception in this game. They lose one fumble. It's a Jones fumble, which has obviously been a bugaboo for him, but that was at the end of the first half. On the last play of the half, it didn't mean anything. So I think that's a big difference here, too. You have the defense has taken 3 steps up from what we expected. You have Daniel Jones playing cleaner football, and then you have a much improved offensive line with Saquon Barkley healthy. You add it up, and I'm still surprised it's 5-1, but at a certain point we have to be 2 things, Mark. We need to stop being surprised when the Giants win close games, because especially in this landscape with so many teams that are so close to each other, good coaching and smart football down the stretch matters. And number 2, I'm going to take an L on this. And when I think about the power rankings, you can't give the Ravens the benefit of the doubt anymore, because when it happens 3 times now in 6 weeks, there's a problem with their ability to close games.
Yeah, they can't close. And I think the Wink Martindale factor mattered here. Again, what is football other than self-scouting and scouting? And this is someone that knows Lamar Jackson better than ever. He didn't know, though, that he was going to fumble at the 13-yard line to give the Giants that short field. I mean, the difference here to me is Lamar Jackson mistakes at the end. And we've seen this in other games. It doesn't characterize his career entirely, but there just seem to be high-profile Lamar Jackson mistakes. It's happened this season. It's been the Ravens' defensive issues, too, with some of these collapses. But today, it's like the Giants in the right place at the right time. Brian Daboll is not just the coach of the year because of what he's doing technically. It's like the Giants feel a completely different core energy source than they have during our entire run of this podcast. And I think that people look to the Packers win and said, well, it's a lot to do with Green Bay being out of sorts. Okay, well, they are out of sorts. We're looking at Green Bay differently. But no one really looked at this game and said the Ravens are going to stumble against the Giants. They've done it. I don't care. 5-1 in 2022 is 5-1. What are any of these teams?
I feel
I
feel like their Week 1 game against the Titans was the biggest Week 1 game because just the feeling that they got from coming all the way back at the end of that game and winning it, the way that they won it gave them something where the next week, by the way, they were tied with the Panthers late in the fourth quarter. They have the feeling they can go win that game. And then these last 2 weeks with these comebacks, there's something that numbers can't measure. And yes, that doesn't carry over from year to year necessarily, but I do believe that it can carry over for a year, and it's happening for this Giants team.
Yeah, and the Ravens will, when they look at the tape, and it's not going to be easy, they'll look at the first half when they outgained New York 256-90, but went to the tunnel up 10-7. Even Justin Tucker missed the field goal. So everything seems to be breaking New York's way right now, including the schedule, because next week they go to Jacksonville. I know Jacksonville is not the pushover they once were, but it'll be interesting to see the Giants now with a lot of hype going to play a team where they're going to be the favorite on the road. Another test for the Dave. Oh, I locked up the Ravens.
No, I'm sorry to hear that.
Lest it not be said that I'm some type of New York homer. I was not so much in my mind that was not so much doubting the Giants. It was believing in the Ravens. But I have to recalibrate that Baltimore situation.
I was surprised because I felt like you've been getting on me for being an anti-Giants guy. And I was. And I
42 and 46.
Also, you went out. You did an escape hatch
I
on this
also
lock,
locked
Greg.
up the Giants. I mean, the Ravens. And then jumped out of it.
Smart.
We'll see if I end up being right. That's a teaser for your Sunday Night Football recap.
He's a
well,
pro,
the nation
baby.
is gripped to discover what happens on that front.
All right, let's take a break, and we'll be right back. All right, well, there's one team from New York, those Little Town Blues. They are melting away. Let's make a brand new start of it. Let's head to Lambeau.
Zach Wilson takes the snap. Counter handoff. Up the middle goes Breece Hall. He's at the 30, at the 25-20. Right side 15, 10, 5. Touchdown! A little counter inside handoff to Breece Hall, who finds some Jet fans in the crowd and does a Jets Lambeau leap.
Oh, yeah, the bongos are back.
I think the Jets are going to own the bongos.
Operation Bongo.
Seems fair.
The Jets doing a Lambeau leap into a group of Jets fans in that end zone. Unbelievable. The Jets are good? Maybe. I think so. Rookie of the Year candidate Breece Hall ran for 116 yards, including that 34-yard touchdown, while Quinnen Williams and a relentless pass rush sacked Aaron Rodgers 4 times and really gave him a beating. In the end, it was a 27-10 victory over the Packers. Yes, at Lambeau Field, the Jets have won 3 straight. They're 3-0 on the road. You know, had Buffalo lost today, they would have been tied for first in the AFC East, but they're right behind the Bills. And this had to be a great feeling, boys, for Mike LaFleur, the brother of Matt LaFleur, Green Bay Packers coach. The Jets offensive coordinator really had his way with the Green Bay defense as this game really started to take on form in the second half. They outrushed Green Bay, the Jets did, 179-60 on a day that Zach Wilson threw for just 110 yards. So,
wow.
Here are the Jets. They break a 3-all tie with 2 touchdowns in the span of less than 2.5 minutes in the third quarter, and they have this juice to them. This Jets offense has juice, but I think the story of this game, boys, to me was the defense. The Jets defense with that pass rush, and Quinnen Williams, like I said, he has superstar-type potential now that he's starting to act on. With that secondary, with Sauce Gardner leading that end of things, they were swarming a Green Bay attack that just didn't look alive again.
I totally enjoyed watching this next to you. I've never really heard you as spirited about the Jets, not just like trying to salvage a mediocre Jets team into something they're not, but like there's actually a core of wonderful young players on this team, and someone like Quinnen Williams who, you know, up and down, starting to be unlocked by Robert Saleh, the same way that he did with Niners players up and down the roster in San Francisco. And every time I looked up, the Jets were essentially taking the spirit out of the Packers and just shutting them down. And I have never seen a Jets performance like that on that front. I mean, the Packers have a ton of issues, but they right away, 3 straight punts, a missed field goal, another punt, a fumble, and downs for Green Bay. Their defense is a difference-making defense right now.
He was sacked 4 times and hit 9 times, and those just aren't numbers you're used to seeing out of a Packers team. Number one, their offensive line is usually just better, and Elton Jenkins, who's had a great career so far, he's a young player, came off a torn ACL. It hasn't been the same this year. But also Rodgers is so good getting rid of the ball, you know, and not taking those hits. Even if he holds it longer than, you know, some purists want it, he always avoids getting hit, and he just doesn't seem like he can avoid it these days, and that's happening a lot of times when you play this Jets defense.
Yeah, and from the very start of this game, you could see him holding his thumb, shaking his hand, and that is something to keep an eye on, because there were some throws in this game where it was vintage Rodgers, and it's like, oh, there's only a handful of guys that can make that throw. But there was a deep cross at one point, Romeo Doubs, that was underthrown. He kind of dirted the throw, and again, like whenever he's idle, he had his hand in the hand warmer, shaking it out, and you're just wondering, you know, how that's feeling right now. And speaking of Aaron Rodgers, you know, it's new on our radar here as a trope alert. When a team, whether it's offensively or defensively, feels like they need to make a change midstream to not be so, you know, dense, listening to Aaron Rodgers.
All of it. Yeah. I don't want to get too specific. And I'm not attacking anything. I just think that based on how we've played the last 2 weeks, I think it's going to be in our best interest to simplify things for everybody, for the line, for the backs, for the receivers, especially with Kabi's injury. Just simplify some things, and maybe that'll help us get back on track.
The only other person saying this right now is his former offensive coordinator, Nate Hackett, out in Denver. Right. So we've got problems. I mean, when's the last time, or how often is it happening that you look at a Packers team that went 4 of 16 on third down and looked like it, and then 1 of 4 times on fourth down? I mean, they're shut down.
Or a team led by the reigning 2-time MVP, with in an offense he's been in for 4 years saying we need to simplify.
Right.
That's
4
something.
yards per play.
And Cobb that he mentioned, by the way, Randall Cobb looks like he
Right.
has a high ankle sprain and will miss some time.
Yeah.
That's
so
the initial reporting.
Green Bay does not look right on offense. The defense we've been talking about all season. They got a score, the Rodgers touchdown pass to Lazard that cuts it to 17-10 in the second half, and you're thinking, uh-oh, look out, as a Jets fan. And what do? The Jets march right down the field, and they get that touchdown to go up 24-10. They never then get a stop on fourth down in the next ensuing Green Bay possession, and it was over. It was almost like as the game was winding down, I think every Jets fan, and I talked about it on Thursday's show, this game could go one of two ways. Green Bay can get right and blow you out, or you could find yourself in a close game. I did not imagine the Jets were going to blow out the Packers, but that's kind of what happened. And you talk about the Lambeau leap, the jet leap there. After the game, you have Sauce Gardner walking around the stadium wearing the cheese head. Lazard reportedly knocked it off his head in frustration. And this is just like all Jets have some swag, and I think it was Robert Saleh that's calling them the baby Jets, which is something I think you're going to start hearing because this is a young, talented roster. Still don't trust the quarterback, but there's a lot to like, especially in a very wide-open AFC. Why not the Jets?
Yeah, it's crazy that Zach Wilson having 110 yards is barely makes a blip. Breece Hall, like his scrimmage yards through this time. This baby Jets thing, I think, is going to catch on. And Sauce, like, I just love the feeling he has given that defense. He seems like a leader right from the jump.
He's a dude. And, Mark, you were a dude.
All right.
Because you were the only Jet supporter in terms of the picks from the NFL media gang. And after the game, the Jets and their social team, right, we're only rocking with Mark Sessler. And a nice little callback to the best part of what is the Chappelle?
Half-Baked.
Half-Baked. You're cool, blank you're cool, I'm out. You're cool old guy with your thumb up. That's great.
I might have been half-baked when I made that pick, but it certainly came out looking quite good on the other side.
Before we
He's
get
a top 10 football insider.
That's
before
right.
we get too many annoying tweets, it's like, F him, F him, F him, you're cool.
That's right. I had it reversed. Thank you.
Just throwing that out
Thank
there.
you for that. And that's the move, by the way. And I know we talked about this,
We
Mark.
did. Yeah.
You always be the one person picking against it. Because now these social teams are going to highlight that. No one cares if you pick with everyone else.
No.
Do we have a friend in the Jets social department? Because you did that with the Giants, too. You probably was the only person to pick the Giants. I don't know.
Where
I
was the
was.
Giants tweet, by the way?
I don't know. I was
That's
the
what
only
I'm saying.
person to pick the
Jets
and
are
Giants.
Sessler fans.
It's just like the Giants like, oh, we're above such things.
We won't point out that individual.
Oh, that
I don't know.
rapscallion.
Sassy made it Sessler. I mean, how about that guy?
Sessler?
Who is that guy?
Who is that guy? We're the Giants.
Now it makes sense because
We're
Mark
a Tiffany franchise. We would never highlight.
Not that.
That
No, it's-
rapscallion.
Or maybe they saw the Jets do it and thought we just got beat to the punch.
there seems to be. I don't know how much Dan is truly enjoying the G-Men. It's sharing the New York shine here.
It's something you keep missing on. It's fine. I don't care. I've been waiting for so long for the Jets to be a fun team to watch and to follow
Fair.
on this podcast, and they're real. And I can't wait to see what happens next.
I was wondering why Mark was enjoying this game more than like any game all season, and now it makes sense. He knew like that
It
social
connects.
pop was coming.
I mean, when I picked the game, I
Yeah,
knew what was
yeah,
going to happen.
that's
So
fair.
I was just sort of like watching
Right.
it happen as I prophesied.
Mark likes to have like.
I
these
feel
moments.
power.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to.
You like-
unlike anyone else on the show,
I was gonna say,
alone like to have my
you'll
little spotlight
You'll
moments.
give Greg and I a lot of grief for like seeking the spotlight.
No,
but
I don't.
You're not much different, Mark. You're just like us.
I probably am.
Let's move
Probably.
on. Check in with another frisky team that might be making a turn onto Spicy Lane.
Bird comes in the orbit from left to right. Mariota looks. Now going to loop. And Kyle Pitts caught it.
Who?
Touchdown.
Who's that?
On U.S. soil, number 8 has a touchdown.
Glad that's over.
West Durham, WZGC. We were there on foreign soil when Kyle Pitts had his first career touchdown last year against the Jets, in fact. But there haven't been any touchdowns since for the tight end, who once again didn't have a big game. But guess what? none of the receivers on Atlanta are going to have big games because they don't pass the ball a lot. But that doesn't mean they can't win, as we saw again today, because Marcus Mariota threw 14 passes, but 2 touchdown passes, and a 28-14 win over the Niners in Atlanta. Greggy, these Dirty Birds, they're interesting.
I mean, they are dirty. That's what Kyle Pitts was doing after that touchdown, the Dirty Bird. And it reminds me, maybe not even of late 90s football, more like 1980s football. They out-49ered the Niners. I mean, to run it like that, and the defense that the 49ers is known for ultimately wasn't there. Like, they were missing their starting defensive line. They had some other players go in and out during the game. And I don't think the Falcons were afraid. And when this game was taken was really in the late second quarter when they just kept handing the ball to Caleb Huntley, and he just kept running through them. Mariota was only 6 for 50 on the ground with a rushing touchdown, but it felt like each one of those 6 rushes were design runs, and they were all killer. Tyler Algier gets 51 yards too, and they just kind of did the 49ers style of play, and they did it better, and they forced 3 turnovers, too, on defense that helped them out. But I was just, like, impressed, and I think they're blowing past spicy. I don't care if Chick-fil-A is – I don't care if Chick-fil-A is closed on Sundays. Give them some spicy.
Did you say they're blowing past? Are they the best team in the league? Where are we at?
No, they're going from past spicy to frisky. I mean, they're past frisky. They're to spicy. I don't know what
Listen
they are.
how excited he is.
I know. Well, I mean,
they are
here's
a
the
wild
thing.
together.
You made a great point because I thought they did this 2 weeks ago, and they nearly beat the Bucs a week ago. They nearly beat the Saints in week 1. A lot of things that go like this. This game was absent of the Marcus Mariota killer turnover, which has pockmarked some of their losses. But in this one, it reminds me of what they did against Cleveland 2 weeks ago, where they said, "You think you're going to beat us with the run? We're just going to go do it right to you." And they were the dominant, more physical team in this, and they show no fear. And I think if we talk about the
Giants, they stopped the run too. That's a good point.
Right. I looked up at one point, and the Niners had like 30 yards rushing in the first half, so they're taken out of their system. They're missing half their defense. So I think when these guys have a rematch, it's going to look different. But the Falcons, to me, if we talk about Brian Daboll being a good coach,
wait, a rematch? You predicting a playoff rematch? I like that.
No, probably not a rematch. You're right. Down the road, if they ever were to meet again.
I would love it.
But I think Arthur Smith is been overlooked as a very good head coach who has had a lot of injuries, got a weird roster on offense.
Since he's taken
absolutely.
over.
There were little elements of it last year. There have been a lot of elements this year, and today was sort of like the breakout game.
I think it's similar to what's going on in the AFC with a team like the Jets. Like you mentioned that they nearly beat the Bucs, they nearly beat the Saints, but it's like, who are the Bucs? Who are the Saints? Like, who are these teams that we expected
in the middle.
them to be big-time teams? So if there's these teams that were at the bottom of the standings or teams that were seen as afterthoughts entering the year, like the Jets, like the Falcons, man, if they start gaining some confidence and they're a young team with some players and a quarterback in Marcus Mariota who's seen a lot, who's been through a lot, and now has better perspective. I remember Steve Weiss, who covers the Falcons for the team, talking to him before the season, and he was like, yeah, there's a lot of good vibes around Mariota because he, in this opportunity as a starter, it's so different than when he was in Tennessee and everything was given to him. He's appreciating it more, and he's ready to be that guy.
Yeah, he also has, I think, come close at times to testing the concept of putting Desmond Ridder in there because there have been moments, quarters in a row, where he's been really inconsistent.
This was the perfect Mariota game because he only threw the ball 14 times. He didn't have an incompletion until 10 minutes left in the game. He finishes 13 for 14. There were a couple good throws in there, but for the most part, they were open receivers and short throws. And that's perfect for him. On the 49ers side,
wait, one more thing, though.
Oh, wait.
Like, what they want to do is run the ball. They want their quarterback to be mobile and make plays.
He fits really well.
He's never going to be the superstar that Titans perceived him to be 10 years ago.
No.
But I think he's going to be imperfect, but I think he's a good fit for what Smith wants to do. I'd be surprised if they turn to him.
No, I don't think they will for a long time. And Nick Westling, said he wishes Chris was here, and he knows Chris is watching his guy Mariota, saying, "I told you so." Like on a day where Jameis Winston was benched, Chris would be sitting here in this never-ending Mariota Winston thing that has no purpose to it and
the
no
Cold
winner
War that no one else is paying attention
would be back on his side. The 49ers Quickly lost Mooney Ward, Charvarius Ward in this game. He wants to be called Mooney, by the way.
Okay.
And I think he's playing like an all-pro, so we got to listen to him.
Sure.
I think we should listen to him even if he was a bad player.
That's
his
endless name
personal
changes
wish.
in the
That's a good point. Mooney Ward and Mike McGlinchey. So those are two more. They're starting right tackle.
Stacking up.
2 more injuries. I read an article after the game from a 49ers source, and they went through all the injuries. I counted 11 starters. I mean, that's a lot. 11 starters is getting to a totally preposterous scenario. Now, most of them will be back this year, almost all of them. But 11 starters out right now. There was a drive in this game quickly that pointed out how Mike Shanahan and Jimmy Garoppolo, really Shanahan, this is his stat, are 0-26 when trailing by 4 points after 3 quarters in the Shanahan era. They don't have a single comeback trailing by 4.
Kyle Shanahan, just
Kyle
to be
Shanahan,
clear. Okay.
not Mike.
Because, I mean, their careers didn't totally cross. But,
No,
yeah.
Kyle Shanahan. There was a 16-play, 8-minute 49ers drive, and the score was 28-14 in the fourth quarter. 8 minutes, 16 plays. They only reached the 19-yard line, and they turned it over on down. So that's sort of like a proof of the cliche, like they're not built to play from behind. I think the 49ers are kind of the ultimate not built to play from behind team.
That seems like a problem, as it was today. Let us move now to Miami, where the Dolphins look to avoid a 3-game losing streak after a 3-game winning streak to start their season, but there were the Vikings.
Miami.
3:26 to go in the game. Handoff Dalvin. Miami native with some room left side. There he goes! To the right. He gets to the 30. Dalvin 20. And is loose! Touchdown! Welcome home, Dalvin Cook. He just ran into the end zone and ran the Minnesota Vikings to a 22-10 lead.
Paul Allen, KFAN. He's an all-star, that Paul Allen. As is Dalvin Cook. His 53-yard touchdown rush salvaged what was an otherwise pedestrian day for the star running back, and it also iced a 24-16 win for the Vikings, who improved to 5-1. And yes, the Dolphins, after a 3-game winning streak, starting 3-0, have now gone 0-3, so they fall to 500. Greggy, the Dolphins side we'll get to because it's hard to figure out what they're, or Mark?
Yeah.
It's hard to well, it's got to be changed on the dock.
A lot of moving parts.
Everybody telling me, but
yeah, we were going to help you out there. Had you continue to throw to Greg. It's fine.
I tried. But the Dolphins have their issues at quarterback. But the Vikings are finding ways to win and really not lose, which happens too often with this franchise.
That's fair.
I mean, they really tested the limits of almost losing today. I mean, we talk about the Vikings as a streaky offense, and I cannot find a game where that was more true. Like Kirk Cousins, on their 2 touchdown drives before that Dalvin Cook march, which came off a critically terrible Jalen Waddle fumble for the Dolphins. There were a lot of mistakes on the Dolphins offense today. But the Vikings before that, their first 2 touchdowns, Cousins was 11 for 11. On every other drive, they went 3 and out, essentially. I mean, they had, I'm trying to count up how many drives there were between these two teams, about 1.6 billion. And there were
I think they had 10 3 and outs, I just counted.
Yeah,
in one game, in one team.
And it was awful. It looked that way. They just could not. You know what?
Insane.
You know one thing that Miami does have? You're not a lot of weather advantages, but we've seen this over and over. The heat down there, it was like they completely, I think, changed the Vikings out of the gate. It was Dolphins' issues and mistakes, though, that I think really cost Miami, and they're going to be so frustrated looking back on this because early on, Jalen Waddle essentially had a bobbled pass from Skylar Thompson that ended up in a Harrison Smith touchdown, which killed a potentially good drive. Teddy Bridgewater came in for Thompson, who had hurt his thumb, and Teddy looked like he was simply unprepared to be in there for a big chunk of this until they got a little unhinged. He had a terrible interception. He was lucky he wasn't picked 6 by Patrick Peterson on what would have been his second interception. They just had a lot of terrible offensive line penalties. There was a bad intentional grounding that ended a drive. I mean, Teddy, to me, until the end, was just a very discombobulated individual in this game. And it's too many quarterback changes. It's just too much going on. It's been the 4th game in a row where they've had a quarterback switch.
They also doubled them almost in yardage, though, the Dolphins. What a bizarre game.
But that's because the Vikings are going 3 and out literally like the entire game until these other things.
To put that in
drives.
perspective, the Vikings had as many 3 and outs in this game as about half the league had drives in their respective games today. Like, that could be an entire game having 10 3 and out. So they kept getting the ball back, and eventually they hit. But it's kind of a perfect Vikings win. A one-score game ultimately, the 4th straight one-score win. And just like a game that you're like, huh? Like, I know you said that like there aren't great teams, Dan. They feel like such a strange 5-1. They feel like one of those teams in the middle, but they're 5-1.
Yeah, they're an example of a team that has talent and has playmakers, and you know, they're reinvigorated with a new coach, and they're taking care of business because there's a lot of teams that aren't figuring things out. It's interesting to me on the Miami side. Obviously, yes, the quarterback carousel is a tough situation, but they're still getting production. Last week against the Jets, they got 100 yards in pass interference calls. This year, the production was back for Hill and Waddle, like nearly 300 yards or over 300 yards between them. But the points just aren't there. Just tough situation for Miami.
And down their starting tackles, too.
That mattered a lot because there was an opening drive where they kept moving the ball. It was a 47-yard drive that ended up with nothing, but like there's 40 yards of penalties, 4 killer penalties on offensive linemen who are replacing starting linemen. So I think just like from the Mike McDaniel front, he learned over the last 3 or 4 weeks, like, you know, it's nice that 6 touchdown performance against the Ravens, but suddenly you get injuries, quarterback problems, you're losing your left tackle.
Ago.
Right.
I know.
That feels like 7 years ago.
The NFL season is so long that they were 3-0, and it just feels so different. And it's so long, so I know I shouldn't put too much into it, but the Vikings are 2 games up and have the tiebreak with a win over the Packers. It's not insignificant. It's something.
It's like, do you want to trust the Vikings?
No, I don't, but I mean, that's something.
But as messy as the Packers have been, we have a lock?
Someone did trust the Vikings. Great
digger.
It wasn't
Smart.
exactly how I envisioned it, especially when I saw Teddy Bridgewater coming into the game, but Vikings get the job done. You can trust them, I think.
All right, we'll see. Many Vikings fans have thought that before.
And see how much you can trust the Vikings. Like, just want to let you know, it was kind of.
All right, let's take a break here, and we'll welcome in a friend. All right, welcome back. Let's get into another thriller down at the Superdome.
Burrow in the gun, Mixon to his left. Joe drops back to throw. His pass caught by Chase at the 50. Runs through an arm tackle.
Nice.
Down
There
the
he is.
sideline. He's going to take it to the house. Jamar Chase, a 60-yard touchdown. And the Bengals have the lead with 1:57 to go.
Unbelievable.
That is what has been missing for Cincinnati. Dan Horde and Dave Lapham, the call WCKY. Joe Burrow passed for 3 touchdowns, ran for another, and yes, had that big hookup, the second of the game with Jamar Chase, to secure a 30-26 win over the Saints. A nice comeback now. We welcome in the Pipe, Nick Shook. On Thursday's show, Pipe talked about, like, it's kind of on the head coach and the brain trust there to pop the hood on this offense and find a way to get the big play element of Jamar Chase back. Well, they found a way, and it won them a game.
Yeah, maybe they just needed a trip to New Orleans, where Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase used to throw it all over the yard in the national championship game for the LSU Tigers. It certainly worked.
Burrow
like
showed
this.
up in the jersey, the LSU jersey of Jamar Chase, and then had a huge game. Maybe you should keep doing that.
Yeah, exactly. 7 catches for 132 for Jamar Chase, including that 60-yard touchdown. More than anything, it wasn't even so much the big play for this offense. It was the fact that they were able to continuously convert, especially in the second half. They had 4 possessions, 3 of them ended up in points, field goal, touchdown. And it was the drive before the touchdown that really mattered the most because, again, it was 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, where Burrow would be under pressure and dump it off and just get enough past the sticks. T. Higgins made a nice catch, got him in field goal range. Whether 2 sacks, still was able to stay within Evan McPherson's range. He hits that field goal. And then the biggest turning point the entire day, and really I think the story of this game beyond the Bengals being able to produce that big play, is the Saints, who hadn't had a 3-and-out since their opening drive, which they got back because Trent Taylor fumbled the punt. They go 3-and-out in the worst possible situation. They get 2 runs for 3 yards each, incomplete pass. You got to punt it away. A team that had dominated time and possession to that point, they only ended up with like a 5-minute advantage, but they were keeping it on the ground all day and really controlling the game. They couldn't do it in the biggest moment. Gave Joe Burrow that opening. If we know anything about Joe Burrow through the short time he's been in the NFL, he's going to take advantage, and it's going to be Jamar Chase who makes the play. So it was a perfect little capper to what they've, their history in Louisiana with LSU and everything else.
I'm looking forward to watching this game. It's such a strange one. I mean, the Saints have to be killing themselves that they rushed for 228 on the ground. And it's not one of those like 50 for 228. It's like only 34 carries. Everyone who ran the ball ran well for them. They were down their top 4 wide receivers in this game. The Saints, we should be pointed out. Jameis Winston was essentially benched for this game. He was active, but he didn't start. It was Andy Dalton, which to me is like a soft benching. Let's see what happens. And Marshawn Lattimore, their top cornerback, is out for this game, and yet they still were in position to win. Like, what is happening with this defense, Shook? And, like, how much was Honey Badger in the safety position a problem? Because I follow a lot of Saints Twitter. They are not happy with what's happening with Honey Badger this season. And he made a bad angle on that Chase touchdown, and Marcus May's been up and down. And that was kind of the identity to their team a year ago. They let Marcus Williams walk, and people are missing that safety duo who's now given up a lot of big plays in New Orleans.
I think it's a kind of a bad fit. I mean, not the worst fit, but not a fit like it was in Kansas City for him. I don't think it's necessarily a condemnation of where Matthew is as a player. I just think that the fit in their scheme is not quite as good. I mean, they still were pretty effective in the first half. They built themselves a bit of an advantage. It was 20-14 going into halftime, and it felt like the Bengals, they just weren't quite getting on track. Yeah, they had 2 touchdowns on the board, but it wasn't just there. And we kind of seen that from the Bengals throughout this season. So it was like, okay, this is a Saints defense that should be able to stand up. And then the fact that their offense fails to put more than 6 points on the board in the second half, and then they crumble. It's not like they were on the field for a ton of time in the second half, but these were all long possessions by each team. I think the Bengals in the second half had a drive of 13 plays, another drive of 7 plays. They needed that 1 for 60. That was 3 of their 4 second half possessions. So they were out there and tasked with keeping this offense bottled up while their offense wasn't necessarily continuing to do what they needed to do, and it ended up hurting them.
And we mentioned Winston. He hasn't played for 3 games now with the back and ankle injuries. He was in uniform in this game. Here's what Dennis Allen had to say, the Saints coach, after the game. He's not 100% healthy. We have a Thursday night game. Let's get into study on that, see where he is at, and then we will go from there. Andy Dalton also said, Mark, I'm going to let DA, Dennis Allen, handle that whole situation. So we'll see how that goes.
I mean, he could be talking about the district attorney's office, but I'm assuming it's the coach. Shook, question for you, because we just talked about Baltimore melting down today. That's been their characteristic with these big leads. Pittsburgh's Pittsburgh, Cleveland's Cleveland. Do you trust the Bengals as the best team in this division going forward?
Big picture, Sessler.
I mean, that's going to be tough when you talk about the fact that the Ravens just beat the Bengals last week, but it was a close one. I think long-term, yes. I'm not confident in anybody in this division. I'm still most confident in the Bengals and the Ravens, but the Ravens, that's become their MO is to blow those leads.
Well,
so
these two divisions, by the way, including the Saints NFC South, are kind of typical of the NFL right now. There's no winning record in either division. So on one hand, 2-4 feels dark for the Saints. On the other, they're only one out of first, and the Bengals are tied for first at 3-3.
Good job, NFL. That's what you wanted.
Good job, our league. All right, now our Browns beat reporter. It's not the most glamorous job, but that's what Shook is, and he's going to be a pro once again. I could feel it. To Cleveland.
The tight end, Henry now in motion left. Zappy with a play fake and a deep drop. Throws it near side wide open. Henry at the 15, to the 10, to the 5. Waltzing into the end zone. Touchdown, Patriots!
I need 4 Advil because I'm starting to get the fever again.
He always delivers. He's not a Gatorade bottle. Make him a Pepsi or something.
He wishes he was a Gatorade bottle. He's a Powerade bottle. Bob Sochi and Scott Zolak with the call WBZ. Bailey Zappi. Have a day, kid. The rookie threw for 309 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Bill Belichick gets his 324th win, tying George Halas for second on the NFL's career list. Watch out, Don Shula. Final score, yes, 38-15. Pats over Browns. Shook, this one seemed pretty ugly on the Cleveland side, but let's start with the Patriots, who week by week are figuring it out and look like a team that is going to make noise in the AFC.
Last week the Patriots get a shutout win, and there was Zappy fever and everything, but I felt like that defense did as much to win that game than Zappy, just as much as Zappy did. This week, Bailey Zappy won this game for them. Now, did the Browns defense have some breakdowns? Yeah, but he found guys consistently at a variety of levels in the field in different situations, completing key third downs. The only one third down conversion from the Patriots that really jumped out to me as almost being insulting to the Browns was Ramondre Stevenson's touchdown run on 3rd and 10, because it's well, they're running on 3rd and 10. That takes some gall, but they trust their Ramondre Stevenson in the rushing attack. But Bailey Zappi over 300 yards passing, just connecting with a number of targets. Some guys really helped him out. Devontae Parker had a great catch down the sideline. He hooked up with Jacoby Myers a variety of times. Hunter Henry had the touchdown. We look down the list here. You got 9 different guys who had receptions. Well, Zappy, I guess, had one according to this because it was a batted pass. So we'll go with 7, 8 different guys who had receptions. All right. I mean, he had a great game. And we talk about quarterback long term there now. I give it a little bit now. We talk Dallas. There shouldn't be a controversy in Dallas, but maybe in New England.
He's played pretty well. He's gotten much better each week, which is a great sign. I have a hard time believing they would sit Jones when he's healthy, but he might not be all the way back. You're right. He got to his 2nd and 3rd read on the Tyquan Thornton touchdown. Tyquan Thornton, who was a rookie, 2nd-round pick, speedster. It came off IR a couple weeks ago. I think he's going to be a big part of this offense. He had a rushing touchdown today, too. He had a couple of different red zone threats. I just thought this was a coaching game. Yes, Zappy played well, but guys are open. There were so many Patriots guys open this year. I didn't see a lot of Browns guys open in this game. Even the plays that Jacoby Brissett made and the receivers made was in tight coverage. And you kind of compare that and you think about coaching. Then you think about the other side and you think about Joe Woods having kind of no answer with a lot of talent and wide open guys and confusion. And you flip the other side, and it's the Patriots are coaching up these rookie defensive back, Marcus Jones and Jack Jones. They've got 2 rookie cornerbacks playing starting snaps, playing great. And, to me, it felt like a very much a coaching win, Nick Shook.
Yeah, Greg, I think that statistically the Patriots defense doesn't stand out as a great one, but if you watch them on a week-by-week basis, they play better than the numbers indicate. Yes, they're very good. You need to start paying attention, football world, to the Patriots defense because they're really coming together, of course, under the direction of Bill Belichick. And then on the flip side of the coin, like you said, Joe Woods, another bad performance from this defense. I'm getting some feeling here in Cleveland that people are going to be wanting some heads to roll potentially, which is not good at this time. It's week 6, but they're going to want jobs on the line. Like they're disgusted with this. So it's going to be interesting.
Well, and it's time to create a scapegoat if you're Kevin Stefanski, probably, because I think that Joe Woods, the defense, I know there were moments, stretches of time a year ago where they looked competent, but this defense seems to me to have week-by-week breakdowns. And I would just flip it around because Dan's big thing all week was like, run Nick Chubb until the earth ends. He had 12 rushes for 56 yards. I know that's New England did a nice job against the Lions against the run a week ago. They did it again. Could Cleveland just not get into their game script here?
Well, they struggled to run the ball on first down, but then the worst offense, I thought today was Kevin Stefanski's worst called game of his career with the Browns. And
how about the 45-7 game a year ago against Bill Belichick?
No, this is worse.
Okay.
This is worse because they were within striking distance. And you're down 11 points early third quarter. You're facing the 22nd ranked rushing defense. You have Nick Chubb, and you line up Jacoby Brissett, drop him back to throw on 3 straight downs, and punt the ball. I mean, it happened over and over again. They abandoned the run for no reason with a lot of time left.
You know who wouldn't do that? One of the best offensive play callers in the league right now, Matt Patricia. When you want to develop an offense with like young players, Bailey Zappi and Cole Strange and Thornton, you just go to an offensive mind like Matt Patricia.
No, we can't do this.
Seriously, though.
That ain't right, dude. We can't give Matt Patricia a collection of roundhouse kicks and uppercuts all through the summer.
I'm making fun of myself.
Because he's a
I
fool,
think people understand
and then mock his success.
That's the
now.
point. I'm not mocking his success.
How about we just say Matt Patricia and that coaching staff is doing great?
I'm trying to mock myself. I mean, I'm mocking how wrong we were because
I'm mocking the mocking.
Right. If McDaniels
of the mocking
called this game, we would be saying like, what an amazing job McDaniels is doing with Zappi. And there were a couple of really great play calls. You mentioned the 3rd and 10 to Ramondre Stevenson, where they run it. I think they're running for first down there. That's not a give up down. And then the bigger one was 3rd and 1 late in the game. You just expect them to power it up the middle. And then they call the play action. And that's where I blame Joe Woods. They call the play action. That's the long touchdown pass to Henry. They're calling an aggressive game plan with Bailey Zappi. But this is where I blame coaching a little bit. Like any play action fake, every Browns defensive player is running 5 yards forward. And there's just like a sea of air behind them for the tight ends.
That's the other coach this season that talked about scaling down the playbook and simplifying a little bit. So that's, to me, just a crisis.
Matty P.
And
house on fire.
A little unsolicited advice for Stefanski. Got to be strategic in your scapegoatery.
Sure.
Because if you can hold off until January, that way you can you could point to something after the season. If you dump your DC now and the season doesn't get better, you could have a problem in January answering to your owner.
I like to call that the old Mike Nolan move.
I really feel like the Jets kind of stole that game in hindsight.
They stole their soul. They fit places.
I hope
their
not.
Season a little bit because
I'm aiming higher
soul now.
than the 2020 Browns. That's what I'm hoping for.
Because like you're losing close games and you convince yourself you're a better team than your record, and the Browns are. But then at some point you start playing bad games. And the Jets, on the other hand, got lucky a couple times, but then you end up start playing better games.
It's like a body swap 80s comedy.
Right.
We've seen 80s football today. Shook.
Not everyone's laughing.
Thank you, buddy. And no matter what happens in the baseball game, you and I are still going to be tight. I know that.
Okay, good. I'm glad because I was there last night, and we'll see what happens.
Downtown
too bad. We
Cleveland's going wild.
We can't talk anymore about it. But Shooky, thank you, and we'll see you next week, buddy. As always.
See ya.
All right, let's take a break. We'll be right back.
All right, we said goodbye to Nick Shook, but before we leave Cleveland, I do want you guys to hear just a delightful moment from Kevin Harlan.
Oh, please.
What
friend of the show.
Yeah, please.
Good friend.
Tell you what, Trent, I love my family, and I love football, but I love blimps. Maybe number 3.
Well, we've had some incredible shots today. That's for sure.
Oh, we have. I love food, too. But I love blimps, I think, more than...
I love lamp.
Likes blimps even more than food.
You know, that's kind of, there's some boomer energy there because, like, he probably also loves fireworks. And he loves space travel, things like that, like the man on the moon. And
I've always wanted to be in a blimp, like in the little metal part underneath the blimp itself, that little place where you look out the window.
And I've been hard on Trent Green over the years. Yeah, that would
also known as the cockpit, I'd imagine.
Cockpit.
It would be nice. We should all take a.
What did you call it? The metal part?
The little metal part with the windows that you look at while you're underneath the blimp part of it.
Yeah. The blimp.
All right.
That's another way to say it. I've been hard on Trent Green over the years, by the way. But if there's one thing Trent Green can do, it can be a straight man to like a comedy bit.
Well,
I like him in that spot.
Found his thing.
Like him in that spot.
As straight as possible. Let's head to Indy where the Colts, they're getting off the mat.
3rd and 13 now for the Colts. 23 seconds left. Colts down by a point. Ryan throws down the near sideline looking for Alec Pierce. He's got it! Touchdown! Touchdown! Alec Pierce spikes it into the end zone. Touchdown! I-N-D-Y! A 32-yard grab over the shoulder snag. Alec Pierce, 32-27 Colts.
Nice ball, nice catch. Matt Taylor, WFNI with the call. Matty Ice back? Colts back? Maybe.
Come on.
Matt Ryan lobbed a perfect 32-yard touchdown pass to rookie receiver Alec Pierce. 17 seconds to play. Gave the Colts a 34-27 victory over the Jaguars. Matt Ryan, listen to this stat line. Ryan was 42 of 58. Jonathan Taylor was a late scratch on Sunday morning for 389 and 3 touchdowns.
Wow.
Which is outrageous. But it shows that it's still within him. So let's bring in our AFC South correspondent, the Gravedigger. Justin, and I know this is annoying, but does it feel like the Colts are kind of finding their way here?
We talked about that a little on Thursday.
Yep.
This is what the Colts do. They get better as the season goes on. This is a game that they led for 17 total seconds.
Oh.
But the most important 17 seconds, the last 17 seconds. It was
Gravedigger, your Colts will finish last place in the AFC South sandwich prop is looking like a big fat 0-4 right now.
Ooh.
But that was a fun prediction.
Sure.
So, I don't know.
So who really lost? I got it. I see your angle.
It's like the friends we made along the way is the sandwiches for me.
You should know, by the way, that Mark was staring straight ahead, tapping his fingers on the glass, and went, "The showman."
I do think that you have an element of a showman. I mean, you're doing a fairly good job.
Sorry to totally sidetrack you with irrelevant sandwich.
You're doing
nonsense.
a fairly
You're doing
good
a
job.
good job, a very good job.
You're doing an excellent job.
I hope
between
you
those two
give your
worlds.
kids like more enthusiastic affirmation than that.
No, Mark.
This is an okay art project. It's
Mark
fine.
wants me to keep improving. I get it. It's good,
Okay.
constructive
Keep you hungry.
criticism. Yeah.
Go ahead.
See it that way.
It was kind of a weird game because it felt like the Jags sort of dominated the first half, but then they were only winning 14-13 at halftime, and then Trevor Lawrence didn't have to do a whole lot. The Jaguars are able to run the ball really well. ETN snapped off a couple huge runs. Agnew had a reverse play that was tossed around in the backfield a little bit and that he took for a long run, and then the Colts came back and they started stopping the run. They came down. They took a lead. Trevor Lawrence had an incredible response drive. It was like the only time in the whole game that he had to do anything, and he was great converting on third downs, using his legs, using his arm, and got them into the end zone with touchdown to Christian Kirk. And then the Colts came down with 2 minutes to go, and they did it. They went and they scored, and it was weird because they got down into field goal range. They converted on a 3rd and 4. They converted on a 3rd and 10 into field goal range. Matt Ryan takes a snap where they're like just trying to milk the clock and set up a better field goal and stumbles and falls down and loses 4 yards, and it turns in what would have been a 51-yard field goal. And then 2 plays later, it's 3rd and 13.
Wow, they were forced into being aggressive.
Yes. So 3rd and 13, they caught the Jaguars in single coverage, threw it up to Alec Pierce, and he made a great play over Shaq Griffin, and that was the game.
I'm seeing this Jaguars drive that you mentioned, though. 18 plays, 72 yards, had it for 10-plus minutes. But if you were the Colts organization and you could have one vision after the Carson Wentz meltdown a year ago against the Jaguars, and you could see that you go get Matt Ryan, he throws the ball 50-plus times, you close the game with a touchdown field goal and 3 straight touchdown drives, you'd be thinking, this is money in the bank. We're going to the AFC title game. It's just that it's been everything other than this second half that was a big problem.
So, I'm not saying none of it matters, but the fact that they've gotten out of this at 3-2-1, they can improve. We know that Frank Reich has the play calling ability to improve. I love that they believed in what they were going to do today in terms of their short passing.
Yeah.
And they got it done. And their pass rush has really become a thing. Trevor Lawrence took 4 sacks in this game. He's starting to take too many sacks and hold on to the ball. But I think the Indianapolis pass rush won them that game a week ago. It sounds like they were crucial today, too.
Trevor Lawrence took a sack on a play that could have been a field goal on the Jags' first drive, and it just pushed them way out of field goal range. And then the Jaguars had the ball up by 2 with a chance to kick a short field goal, and they went for it with like an option play, and it was just there was no room for Lawrence. He pitched it to Etienne, no room for him either, and like those were crucial. I mean, you get those 2 field goals, obviously it's a totally different game.
Come back to us, Jaguars. I thought you were going to be a fun part of the season. I'm kind of stunned by this.
Yeah, well, this was a near win, but they've been disappointing the last few weeks, and the decision to not play Jonathan Taylor probably was a very difficult one for Frank Reich because I don't imagine he thought maybe this Matt Ryan would be unlocked at this point.
You didn't have Nyheim Hines either.
I think this was a game plan because Ryan threw the ball 58 times.
I know, but if Jonathan Taylor's playing, I would imagine it's a different game
Exactly.
script.
So it's interesting the Colts can evolve like this, but 43 of his 58 passes were within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage.
And here's the crazy, and I don't know if you've already said it, and apologies if you did. 0 turnovers, and 0 sacks. So a lot of positives. That's kind of unheard of to have that many dropbacks in the offensive line to keep you clean. And Ryan, who's a statue at this stage, to be able to make the decision.
Just allow some people to be suspicious about who the Colts are going forward. That's all. I mean,
the Jags were not getting.
Sure,
I just mean in this division, they've steadied the ship quickly. Like we mentioned how quick, long the season feels for the Dolphins and the Jaguars too. You could throw in there the fact they're getting out of this with a winning record here and some offensive, good feeling.
We're suspicious of the Colts as well, Mark.
Yes,
but
real quick.
Nice win.
They're good but not great. I'm not even sure they're good, but they were good today.
How many great teams are in the league though? Going back to the theme of tonight's episode,
they were dead last.
No,
three.
We get the chance to look forward to a good team winning the Super Bowl. That will be visually
Michael
fun.
Pittman, 13 catches for 134 yards.
Happened.
Career highs.
All right.
Difference in the game.
Thank you, Justin. Great work. The AFC South correspondent on fire, as always. Let's head to Seattle.
Seattle lines up 4 to rush on Kyler Murray, and they rush 4. Murray steps up. He's going to throw deep down the sideline, and Woolen reaches up, and he makes another interception. Are you kidding me? Tariq Woolen.
Oh, Greggy.
Perfect position. Intercepts his 4th in 4 games.
Oh, Greggy. I know who Tariq Woolen is.
It's my guy.
That's your guy.
Mark tried to make it his guy.
Try to. Denied.
I can still enjoy him as a player. I don't really care about this rule system that you've concocted.
Tariq Woolen had the game-sealing pick for the Seattle Seahawks and their beleaguered defense, which really had its way. I guess you could say had their way, but the Arizona Cardinals offense is struggling so much that it's hard to make sense of these performances sometimes. But at the end of the day, 19-9, Seahawks over the Cardinals. Oh, the Cardinals scored a touchdown? No, they didn't score a touchdown on offense. It was a botched special teams play by Seattle that led to a dropped punt attempt and recovery in the end zone. That's how Arizona scored a touchdown in this game. So their struggles continue. And good news on a day where your boy Geno Smith, Greggy, didn't kill them with mistakes but took some sacks and the offense struggled to move the ball. With Rashad Penny out, Kenneth Walker, who's a very important guy on this team now, if Seattle hopes to be a playoff team, he ran for 97 yards, had a fourth-quarter touchdown, 19-9. There you go. And as crazy as it is, because we saw it as a big-time division potentially, the Seahawks at 3-3 shared the lead in the NFC West with San Francisco.
Wow. Geno, first-place quarterback.
And Geno is a first-place quarterback. But this was a kind of a toughie, this game. It was playing opposite hypothetically or potentially the game of the year, Buffalo, Kansas City. So it wasn't seeing football played at that level next to football being played at this level. Not great, but at the end of the day, Seattle's not going to apologize for anything, and they shouldn't.
Tariq Woolen may give Sauce Gardner not only competition for defensive rookie of the year, but just best defensive rookie cornerback. And he's got the same confidence. You got to love cornerbacks. Asked, about his interceptions after the game, he said, "I don't know why you would throw to a 6'4" corner who runs a 4.26." Oh. That is hey, he's not wrong.
That's swag.
Used to play, wide receiver, so he's learning the position. It's one of the reasons I think he's taking such an exponential leap. They are putting together potentially one of the most impactful rookie draft classes of the last decade. Both of their starting tackles are playing well. Cross,
huge,
and Lucas. Murray, Kenneth Walker, you mentioned, a rookie at running back. Tariq Woolen having this. That's 4 guys not only playing, but playing well. And, oh, by the way, they're also playing Boye Mafe a decent amount. They're kind of starting Kobe Bryant. I don't think he's played that well, but he's been playing. That's 6 rookies that are basically starting, and 4 of them are playing at a really high level. If you're a Seahawks fan, you got to feel great about this kind of rebuilding season, especially on a day like today where you needed the defense to show you maybe they'll give this team a chance to stay relevant.
I mean, that's what they pitched, and I thought there were a lot of issues going into the season with the idea of Geno versus Drew Lock. But the youth part of it had the class worked out. You feel good about where they are. And Richard Sherman came out and just said this is one of the most amazing rookie classes he's ever seen as a player. And I mean, he understands what Carroll's trying to do. I think it's such a energy shift from what's going on with Arizona, because the idea that DeAndre Hopkins is going to return next week and change what's going on with this offense, 4.4 yards per play. They're they're essentially a horizontal offense that can't unhook from their issues. They're terrible on third down, and Kyler Murray cannot do it alone. He's not that kind of quarterback.
I mean, he can be that kind of quarterback, but when the scheme is this uneven and uninspired, I don't think anybody could save the day. He runs for 100 yards in this game, but it is horizontal. There's no vertical element to the game, and I thought it was interesting and unfortunate that kind of been talking for the last couple of weeks thrown in there. Well, DeAndre Hopkins is right around the corner, and Marquise Brown, he's getting himself paid. He's having a big year. He's helped off the field late in this game with some type of ankle issue. He did not look like – he didn't get carded or anything, but he looked like a guy that he got landed on, I believe, on the interception. So we have to see what's going on with him physically, because if it becomes a situation where DeAndre Hopkins returns and then Hollywood goes out, I mean, that just sums up the frustrations in Arizona, who are now 2-4 and firmly in the discussion of, the most disappointing teams in the league. And I can't help it, and I'm looking forward to you guys watching this game, but I can't help but think what is management thinking now? It's you can't fire the play caller. You just gave Cliff Kingsbury an extension, but nothing seems to be functional right now with Arizona.
I don't think the extension matters at all if things get worse and worse.
Matters a little, because if they didn't have an extension, I would expect him to get fired.
Maybe mid-season. But
with the extension, I feel like it's a deeper discussion. The defense has improved each week, which is why this total clunker from the offense, 3 points against the Seahawks, that's literally the worst possible game you can have in the NFL is scoring 3 points.
Like we talk about Joe Woods in Cleveland.
That's it.
If there was a flip side going on here, it would be what's happening in Arizona. But the way the organization is set up right now, it's hard to say. And one more note on their offense. They went 0 for 3 on 4th and short in this game. So they just don't have – their vertical game's hurting. If they need a yard, they're not getting that either.
They're a tough watch. They're a tough watch. I watched them on Sundays 4 times, and I'm not doing it again anytime soon.
They're what you don't want to be. The Vikings are a 5-1 that by the eye test doesn't really look like 5-1. The Cardinals are a 2-4 that by the eye test aren't as good as 2-4, which is that's where you don't want to be.
Not a good place to live. Let's take a break. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. The Carolina Panthers with their new interim head coach profiled as a get-right opponent for the defending champs. Let's see if that's how it played out.
20 seconds left in the third quarter. Another jet sweep. A handoff Skoranek. He's got speed. He's got the edge. He goes in untouched. Ben Skoranek. Touchdown. LA. His first as a pro gives the Rams a lead deep in the third quarter.
Love it. JB Long, our buddy, KSPN with the call. Also another Rams employee, Ricky Hollywood. Great Erica Tamposi sent us a video of Sam Darnold stretching in the end zone.
He was doing that pregame.
Sam Darnold's ready to shock the world, potentially. Or not. Anyway, the Rams, yes, did take care of business at home. Matty Stafford passed for 253 and overcame another pick six. And Ben Skoranek rushed for a touchdown in the second half, as did Darrell Henderson. 2-game losing streak over. 24-10 win over the Carolina Panthers. And, yes, Steve Wilkes in his first game as interim coach. Greggy, you saw signs here of the Rams as they head into their bye being able to feel kind of better about themselves.
I thought this was a significant game for the Rams. Not only do you have to avoid a loss against this Panthers team, but you had to start showing that you could play offensive football. And the Panthers defense hadn't been that bad throughout the course of this season. And they played well in the first half of this game. Like, it was just another ugly Rams game, and you just felt like more of the same. And in the second half of this game, just felt like for 3 drives, we saw the Rams offense. 12-play, 72-yard field goal drive that came up just short, 5-play, 80-yard touchdown drive, 10-play, 61-yard touchdown drive. And it just was using the classic sort of Rams plays where Sean McVay was one step ahead of the defense. Allen Robinson had his best game.
Who?
Made a big mistake, I would say, where he faked out Stafford on the goal line. That led to the field goal. But for the most part, 5 for 63 and a touchdown. He played well. And I just felt like it was important for them to go into their bye week feeling like that. The defense was absolutely dominant, as you would expect, going up against P.J. Walker. But it was kind of next-level dominant. There was a 7-drive sequence where I believe they had about 38 yards, and they had no first downs for a 6-drive sequence. So it was dominant. What else can you ask for other than health, which they don't have? They lost left tackle Joe Noteboom potentially for the season to an Achilles injury in this game. So as good as the second half felt, that is a big Pyrrhic victory.
That is a killer for me because we're looking at their issues, and, you know, we'll see what happens with someone like Cam Akers, who was essentially not played today, not active because of personal issues. They want to get rid of him, I think. But, like, the Rams, to me, they're 3-3 and have looked really poor at times because of their offensive line problems. I mean, it's really it. I don't doubt Sean McVay. I don't doubt, like, their skill position players in general, but the scheme has been totally out of whack.
I doubt their skill position players too. I think it's the combination.
Well, all right, but I'm saying, like, they worked their way out of the dark corner last year where they didn't win for an entire month. I think they have the DNA to do that, but I don't know if you can do that when you've gone and lost another offensive lineman. There's so much chaos happening because of that unit not looking like a professional unit most of the weeks.
The Rams getting to the bye at 3-3 is nice and important for them, but there's so much work to do, as you're saying. And on the Panther side of the ball, you know, not too much here because we know this is an organization in flux, but Steve Wilkes in his first game on the sideline sent Robbie Anderson off the field and into the locker room. I guess I don't know the details behind that. I'd like to hear more about it.
In some sort of argument with the wide receivers coach. He wasn't being played that much, and it seemed like it was more decision not based on an injury, that they were essentially just benching him.
It sounds like
before that. No, they're actively, like, open to trading him and Christian McCaffrey, and I think that could have played into some of his snaps.
Here's the latest on that Peter Schrager, our own Peter Schrager, reports that the Panthers want multiple first-round picks for Christian McCaffrey. So, obviously, any team that's playing the Panthers right now, pick them, because this is not a team that's looking at the 2022 season in the same way as their opponent, most likely. Let's move to the field formerly known as Heinz, where the Steelers had a date with Tom Brady.
Trubisky in the gun. Long count. Gets the snap. He's back. Fires for the end zone. Touchdown, Chase Claypool. Wow. Oh, a little stop route into some zone coverage. What a great job. Mitch seen it. He just seen it, man, and he let it go. He sees it, then he does it.
That's our friend that was like, a little kiss on the daisy rose. Bill Hillgrove and Craig Wolfley with the call. WDVE. Chase Claypool scores. Mitch Trubisky comes in for a concussed Kenny Pickett and makes plays. How about that as Pittsburgh snaps a 4-game losing streak and beats Tom Brady and the Bucs 20-18. I don't know, Mark, I didn't see a second of this one. You need to give us, how did this happen?
It's to me kind of the stamp of the Steelers, where you're coming off a really embarrassing loss, the worst of Mike Tomlin's career, to turn around and do what they did. Because let's start with who the Steelers did not have. You don't have T.J. Watt on defense. Minka Fitzpatrick was out. Ahkello Witherspoon was out. Cam Sutton was out. Levi Wallace. You're missing essentially your secondary.
So top 4 players back there.
And so this would have been the day for Tom Brady, who had thrown for 700-plus yards in the past 2 weeks, to throw the ball downfield. Nope. Instead, I think what happened here was Trubisky coming in fired up after you lose Kenny Pickett to the concussion.
You never want to face a fired-up Mitch Trubisky.
It was his best game of the year. It really was.
Feels like it's a perfect spot for him.
Exactly, because it was like the heat was off, and you come in and just do what you can. The game was manageable. He hooked up with Connor Hayward on a 45-yard catch run. That's Cam Hayward's brother. That led to the Chase Claypool touchdown that put them up 20-12. Then I thought the classic Bucs thing, because we've seen it all year. They're a field goal offense, and they were all day today. Long drives, 10-plus plays. They get close, but not close enough. They had a chance to tie this game. They go 14 plays, 73 yards for a touchdown. And then Chris Godwin on the 2-point conversion cannot pull down the Tom Brady pass. It's 20-18. And so here's where Trubisky could come and mess it up, and you get the Tom Brady comeback. Instead, Mitch hits Claypool on a 17-yard pass.
Beautiful
He
play.
hit him on a 26-yarder. And then Trubisky, unwilling to be denied, runs for a key 9-yard chain mover and then converts a first down to win the game, essentially. And Tom Brady's look throughout this game seemed to be about as frustrated as I've seen him.
Let's hear from Tom Brady, who, yes, you can see it and you can hear it. The man is losing patience.
I think losing comes down to obviously scoring less points than the other team. Then you evaluate why you scored less points than the other team. It doesn't matter if it's Steelers or the Chiefs or right? So you can look at this and say, well, why didn't we score more points?
I mean, that's fair.
He's about to be a television analyst, so he's
so
showing us
good
what he
at
can do
saying
there.
nothing that now we're like.
Sometimes it takes your breath away. He's like, he said so little there.
Right, but now we're built into like looking at the tone of his voice, and he does have that feeling. And I think Belichick is similar. When they lose a game, it's kind of like all of the life force inside of them has been sucked out, like Freddy Krueger once sucked out all the air from one of his victims.
Well,
and it's just
nice.
like nothing
Halloween
is
ref.
left.
Yeah, but how about the idea that all that was sucked out of him at Bob Kraft's wedding or birthday or whatever
People
it was?
need to calm down about that. So what, he went to a wedding on Friday night?
I heard from desk chief Dave Ely that he missed like some team meetings and practice.
He traveled on his own to the game.
Does any of this sound like the Tom Brady that we have grown to know and respect? I'm not challenging his professionalism. I'm just saying this is not the first time we're hearing these kind of stories that you just wonder where he's at. Where's Tom at right now?
Plus everything else going on in his life. I mean, it's like you are going through these changes to lose this game against the Mitch Trubisky-led Steelers.
Tough sitch.
I mean, Todd Bowles.
I love Tom Brady.
Love you, bro.
Up. He was like, I think we didn't take them lightly because they were like, did you take them lightly? He's like, number two, I think guys living off the Super Bowl are living in a fantasy land. You got to get your hands dirty and go to work like everybody else. Maybe there is something to this.
Got him.
Didn't go to work. I mean, he literally didn't go to work. He went to Robert Kraft's wedding.
He did not.
That was a fairy tale wedding, though, from what I understand.
I'm sure.
Talk about based in
Wait,
reality.
what if this is the perfect role for Mitch Trubisky? I think we know it is, but I really mean it. Sometimes a hyped-up starting pitcher in baseball.
Sure.
it doesn't turn into it doesn't work out.
Right.
But you bring him in as a guy who can have some flexibility in the bullpen. Sometimes he gives you 4, sometimes he gives you 2. Either way, he brings you heat. Mitch Trubisky as a good backup who is frisky for a game or 2 a season, that I can live with the next 7 years. That's his destiny.
He was enjoyable today.
What you're saying makes sense. In baseball, it'd be like his stuff plays up in relief.
Right.
His fastball's got a little more life. It's just maybe this is his role in life.
I don't think
It's not a bad role, right?
I don't think
Fitzpatrick, you did it for 15 years. He's now a great Amazon analyst.
I mean, the model is not to have your starter concussed weekly so that Trubisky could come in a good spot and feel good about what he's doing. But
that's right. He'll have to start next week.
That's it for the video portion of today's program. If you want to check out the Sunday Night Football recap of the Cowboys and Eagles, do that on our podcast, The Audio Show, which you can get wherever you get your podcast. Thank you for watching. See you next Sunday, the flagship program. From the Chris Wessling Podcast Studio, it's Around the NFL.
Trevor Lawrence has made major steps. He's well coached. He seems calm.
Greg's hatred of Russell Wilson should not be slept on.
Warnick at fullback for 20 snaps, and it's working, and that's why I'm locking up the Rams.
I feel power, real human power flowing through my bloodstream. I am nothing short of an unstoppable fireball in this industry, in our league. Check you later, brah. Greg.
Staying in that same game, I'm going the other side. It's Dalvin Cook. I got 2 money guns. That's how fired up I am about Dalvin Cook this week.
We'll take it all the way back. Hey, if you want to lean back, rock with us, send us a question at NFL Fantasy. We might answer it on this show. We might answer it on another show.
I know for me, because I've got some Vikings and some Saints, I will be making that decision before I go to bed on Saturday night.
I like Hard Knocks brain. Every single year, I will follow the Hard Knocks team into the 7th circle of hell.
The collapse, epic.
The hallway of the jail.
In a jail cell.
The opposite of a blow up, like a dim down.
God, I can't wait for this game.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Move the Sticks. DJ Buck back with you. It is an adjustment from that scheme into the National Football League.
I want a quarterback who understands how to win and understands how to play the game in a winning fashion.
You just bet on the guy.
Use your imagination to envision what he could become at the next level.
No shame whatsoever. The guy puts on a heck of a show, man. He's a showman.
Welcome back inside with the Insiders. Tom Pelissero here with Ian Rappaport and Mike Garafolo.
2 things stood out to me. 1, Josh Allen's still great. 2, Ken Dorsey, the new offensive coordinator, looked pretty awesome.
You know, I said that coming out, it was good news for it to be the cartilage and not a broken rib.
I'm BA, I won a Super Bowl. I deserve a suite, and they won't give you a suite. Well, you're not going to sit in the press box seat. Give this man a suite.
It's actually happening,
It's
guys.
actually
It's
happening.
here.
I also like the Drake London call because, well, fight on. But also, I think he gets a lot of targets all day long. Just be able to sit down and just watch football and watch fantasy points rack up.
Naheem Hines to the moon.
It's Hines season, baby.
Yes. Is there a waiver wire target that we should feel really confident to go out and get it done for us today, Florio?
Yeah, I mentioned some tight ends earlier. So listen, I'm just asking. There it is.
This is what normally happens here.
From the Chris Wessling Podcast Studio, it's Around the NFL.
Trevor Lawrence has made major steps. He's well coached. He seems calm.
Greg's hatred of Russell Wilson should not be slept on.
Warnick at fullback for 20 snaps, and it's working, and that's why I'm locking up the Rams.
I feel power, real human power flowing through my bloodstream. I am nothing short of an unstoppable fireball in this industry, in our league. Check you later, brah. Greg.
thing in that same game. I'm going the other side. It's Dalvin Cook. I got 2 money guns. That's how fired up I am about Dalvin Cook this week.
We'll take it all the way back. Hey, if you want to lean back, rock with us, send us a question at NFL Fantasy. We might answer it on this show. We might answer it on another show. I know for me, because I've got some Vikings and some Saints, I will be making that decision before I go to bed on Saturday night.
Welcome back inside with the Insiders. Tom Pelissero here with Ian Rappaport and Mike Garafolo.
2 things stood out to me. 1, Josh Allen's still great. 2, Ken Dorsey, the new offensive coordinator, looked pretty awesome.
You know, I said that coming out, it was good news for it to be the cartilage and not a broken rib.
I'm BA, I want a Super Bowl. I deserve a suite, and they won't give you a suite. Well, you're not going to sit in the press box seat. Give this man a suite.
Welcome to Benched with Bonetta.
I like Hard Knocks brain. Every single year, I will follow the Hard Knocks team into the 7th circle of hell.
The collapse, epic.
The
Looks like you're already
of the jail.
in a jail cell.
The opposite of a blow up, like a dim down.
God, I can't wait for this game.
You football ready?
You can't not be hyped for this.
With NFL Network and NFL Red Zone, you are.
You're in the right place.
NFL Network has 24/7 coverage.
Let's break this thing down.
And exclusive live games.
They have the talent.
And NFL Red Zone gives you every touchdown from every game.
What a day.
Sunday afternoons.
We were built for days like today.
You're always inside the huddle.
That's a perfect dream. And we're just beginning. OMG. Come on and watch.
Go to GetNFLNetwork.com and get it all today.